The next thing that I want to refer to is AKA, I'm calling them AKA reservations, because in Linux they're actually called. You can specify fixed addresses, so you can say I want the computer that has this particular MAC address to be assigned this IP address. So that could be, for example, to a printer or to another computer on the network. Obviously useful when delivering IP addresses to devices that would normally be static, but can be dynamic, but with a reservation of some type. Again, it is configured within YAS, so I'm going to go into YAS, I'm going to configure it, and then we're going to take a look at what it looks like in the dhcp.conf file. So that you could see, yeah, if you remembered the syntax of it, you could add it manually to dhcp.conf. So I'm going to go, and I'm actually showing you the syntax right here. Okay, so you type host followed by a name. By the way, the name does not have to be the actual name of your computer. And I'm hesitating there because I don't think I've ever tried this after configuring DNS. So at this point, we don't have DNS. We have a name, a host file. But my point is that I can put anything there, and it's still going to work, as long as the MAC address is correct. Okay? As long as the MAC address is correct. So the syntax looks something like this. Host followed by a name. Fixed address, the IP address that you actually want to assign this computer. And then the MAC address of the, so hardware Ethernet, of the machine that you want, of the network adapter for that particular machine. Okay? So this would come after the, so I'm going to go and do it from the, from YAST, and then we'll take a look at what it actually ends up looking like. So I'm going to go to DHCP from within YAST. And from here, okay, notice, by the way, we haven't opened DHCP since I started. We configured it, but I actually never came back into this tool. So you can actually see the settings that we previously configured. You can see the card selection. So this is where you would want to come back and make sure that that second adapter, when we add it, is not also selected. You can see the global settings. So again, at some point when we add DNS and gateways, this is where we would come back and make those changes. Or you could do it manually by typing it into dhcp.conf and restarting. Your host management and the dynamic DHCP is actually where we have that range, the actual the subnet created. And then the host management is the area where you would identify the machine that you wanted to assign a static address to. So, for example's sake, I'm going to come out here.
You said static address.
Fixed address.
Okay.
Okay. So my network, that's not what I want to say. I'm going to do show, wicked show, ETH0. And I'm going to cheat here and kind of bring this down so I can see that MAC address as I'm doing it. Whoops, that did not work, did it? Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to go into my server, and I'm going to go in. I have my information down here. I'm going to come up here, and again, you don't have to put the actual client name. I'm just going to put the word client. It doesn't have to be the actual name. You do have to have the adapter. So if I were, and I'm demonstrating this to show you that it works, because obviously in the end I'm not going to want my client to have a permanent address or a fixed address. But if you had another, you know, another machine on the network that needed to be the same address but didn't have to be static, like a printer, for example. So here I'm going to specify 005056 B lowercase b3 25A9. Okay, and then the IP address that I'm going to want to assign. Obviously, this has to be within the range of my pool, which is, I believe I have it now from 100 to 75 to 100.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so the range here would have to be below that. So
No, this is not. A reservation has to be within. You're reserving an IP address within the pool.
Oh, okay. I guess
All right.
that concept.
It's like a reservation in Windows.
Yeah, same thing in Windows. It has to be within the pool. So if I'm setting up a reservation, the reservation has to be. You're saying I have an IP address within this pool that I want to assign specifically to another computer on the network.
Yeah, I thought you were going to do that like for the server or something. Maybe I thought I had too much.
No, because your server you wouldn't have a reservation. Okay, I'm going to keep calling this a reservation, guys. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
fixed
yeah.
address. A static address, the server would have to have. That's different than a fixed address.
Oh, that, well,
Okay,
yeah, all right.
it is because it's still sent, but the client is still a DHCP client. Okay, it's not static. The network adapter is still set to DHCP. It's just that the server says you're always going to get this address. Okay, so I'm still managing it through DHCP. I don't have to go to that computer and change IP settings if something changes down there. The computer in my office, I can bet you that there's a reservation for my computer in my office, that they just never changed it. Because years ago, based on the way that I used to remote in, that machine had to have the same IP address all the time. Okay, so but if you look at my configuration, it's DHCP client. It's obtain an IP address, but it always gets this. My IP address hasn't changed in years. Okay, so and I do shut my machine off periodically. So it's so that's the difference here. Is it has to be within the range. So I'm going to go with 192.168.232.99. Okay, you got to click on add. I always forget to, so I always remind you that it does have to appear up here in this upper box. Okay, and then I'm going to click on OK. Before I go out to the client, I'm going to go back out to my prompt here, and I'm going to cat the etcydhcp.conf file to show you the entry that was added. So notice within the subnet, okay, within the subnet, so now notice the double set of brackets at the end here. Within the subnet, it's added this block, okay, host client, fixed address, hardware Ethernet. Okay, so my point is you could have manually added this and then done a syntax check and restarted the dhcp.conf service. But again, it's inside the subnet, so I've got this squiggly bracket lines up with the host client entry, and then this one is still closing off the subnet. So it's a value within the subnet. So assuming I got that client MAC address correct, if I come back out to my client now, I should be able to do an IF down, ETH0, and then an IF up, ETH0, and at this point, when I get my IP address, should now be the .99. Okay, assuming that that worked. It does take a few seconds to... Okay, so now if I do an IF config, you can see that it is a .99 address. Okay, so again, the method of doing what I still refer to as a reservation, it's referred to as a fixed address in Linux, is to either from within YAST, you can configure it, or you can manually configure something like this for each host within that subnet. Okay, and I don't have. It would make sense to me that I would be able to put the name of the computer there, but whatever I put there, it works as long as the MAC address is correct. So I'd have to play around with that name to see if there's something about it that I'm not totally aware of at this point. Okay. So, fixed address, we're good? Exclusions. Okay, so again, the concepts are not new. The key about exclusion is that, again, if it's an address that is smack dab in the middle of your pool, and that address is being used statically on another computer on the network, then you would have to, in Microsoft, you would create an exclusion. Linux doesn't have exclusions, but what you can do is create two ranges. So again, we can see down here that my subnet here, my range is 192.168.1 to 192.168.100, and then I have another range. So I leave out the IP addresses that I do not want used by, in essence, excluding them from the ranges. But there is nothing that's actually called an exclusion. Concept good? Yes? So if I go into my server right now, and this one I'll do with the, I'll VI the file. If I VI this file, and let's say, for example, say I want, and I'm going to actually delete this host, guys, because I really, otherwise I will never be able to see, oops, what did I just do? I think I just deleted everything. Better quit that real quick. Okay. Which I should actually point out, guys, if you totally screw up the dhcp.conf file, okay, just delete it and reopen DHCP server in YAST, and it'll recreate it for you. Okay, so it's really easy to recreate. Okay, so I do want to VI that file. I do want to get rid of all of the host related entries, simply because I don't want the client to be bound to that address. And let's say, for example's sake, I want 192.168.75 through, let's say I have a static address for 100 and 101. I have two servers out there that somebody else configured, and they used addresses of 100 and 101. What I would need to do is I would need to come down here, okay, and, oops, not there, and specify here. So my 100 to 101, I basically would go from 75 to 99. And then I would go range 192, 168, 232. What did I say? 101 to
110.
No, but what did I say? I was going to exclude 100 and 101. So I'd go 102 to 192.168.232.110, assuming that that's where I wanted to end. Okay? So by including multiple ranges and eliminating the IP addresses that you want to exclude, that's the best you're going to get for exclusion in DHCP here. Okay, so again, I'm going to save it. I'm going to check my syntax. Probably should have just retyped. There we go. I'm going to check the syntax, make sure it's correct. I'm going to go back into restart the service. Now, I probably should have included 99 in that exclusion, because we're really not going to see a change on the client side, right? Because right now, at least I don't think we will. If I do an IF down, ETH 0, and then I do an IF up, ETH 0, the way Microsoft would work is, because this computer had the .99 address, and that .99 address in essence is available, it would keep that address. Okay, so again, that's I think that's what's going to have happened here, and it is. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, it's just that again, it will never assign the 100 or 101. Okay, if it hit that 99, again, if it actually had that many computers, it would skip the next two addresses and take whatever's in that next range. Okay, so that basically is exclusions. Okay, I'm going to save reservations and exclusions.